scary, dangerous, addict, liar, thief, manipulator, criminal, guilty. It's like I put on this orange outfit and all these labels got attached to me because I have to be one of them, right? Since you've been here today, how many times has one of these words come to your head? How many times have you been looking at a woman dressed in orange and you smile to be polite, but the entire time you're trying to figure out, what label do you place on her? What did she do? Did you get nervous? Like this much? When you found out that you might be sitting next to an inmate throughout the entire conference? Because if I was you, I'd have been nervous like this much. What are you supposed to think? Unless you have the privilege of knowing a woman that is incarcerated, typically most of our mindsets are cultivated and molded by the platform that society has created to display our image. So you have shows like Scared Straight, 60 Days In, Orange is the New Black. And I mean, what show are you watching with this is going to ever cause you to remove one of these labels that I stand behind right now? When was the last time you were watching one of these shows and you're just in awe because the woman, she was convicted of armed robbery, but she's now being honored because she created a program directing children away from criminal path? Were you ever watching a show and you just couldn't figure out why she was even convicted guilty and sent to prison? Ever watch and get chills because the whole time you're looking at the story and you're thinking, man, that could have been me. I should be in prison. Probably not. Major media typically doesn't show those stories or even cause you to even think about the negative side effects of putting these labels on women. I mean, because I did it, and I've always carried these labels inside of my head. I watched Scared Straight, and it scared me. So before I signed my plea, I did extensive research on the settings of women's prisons. And when I say extensive research, I mean Google. And I must have been asking Google the wrong questions because Google told me I was gonna die. Google said when I walked into this prison, I was gonna get shanked by an old head. So when I walked in and I saw an officer, I made sure I pulled out every bit of collegiate verbiage I had so he knew I wasn't her. Any response that I would give to a directive I received, I would somehow lace it and intertwine it with the fact about my life so they knew that I was different. I felt that I was creating this beautiful imagery of my life so they knew I was not her. But the whole time I'm talking, it started to kick in, and I realized they weren't even listening because they saw everything that they needed to see. So I kept fighting, and I got my first job as a GED tutor. And I felt this prison was lucky to have somebody like me teaching their students. But on the first day that I started working, I was immediately humbled because I realized I wasn't the smartest person walking around this prison. I meet a woman who obtained a degree that made my degree look like a kindergarten certificate. But then I started meeting women that are proud because they're fighting to get their GED because they're determined to walk out of here different from the woman that they walked in as. I started meeting singers and comedians, doctors, lawyers, teachers, cosmetologists, spiritual leaders. So I immediately stopped trying to differentiate myself from these women because we share this common bond of strength and intelligence. And recognizing that strength within each other, we form a conglomerate of unwavering minds every day, determined to expose our greatness to the world. So we come in every day and we practice putting on our capes because we're super women. We start drafting up our flight plans for the day that we leave, but then all of a sudden we start getting hit by kryptonite in the form of these labels. We're just sitting up there trying to write a list up of plans and goals to achieve and have our blueprint so we can follow it when we walk out of these gates, but then we just start reading all of the collateral consequences that don't even begin until the day our sentence in prison ends. So everyone in this classroom, sitting over here, they're supposed to be talking about math. They're talking about CNN and what happened last night and what they're gonna do to make it better when they get out, but they're panicking because they don't even know if they'll be able to vote again. And I'm trying to fuss at this table right here because they're supposed to be doing social studies, but they become family to one another, so they're gossiping. But they lean on each other because they don't have anyone outside this prison to depend on. They are panicking because they don't even know if they'll be able to get public assistance to help them get on their feet when they get out of here. And my teachers, doctors, and lawyers, they are trying to figure out how long they're going to be part of these 27,000 women and individuals who are restricted from practicing in their profession, or if they'll ever be able to step foot in their career again. And you would think that we would stop reading after we find out all of this information, but we keep going. Because there's a study done by the Department of the Bureau of Justice that they follow 405,000 women for 5 years after they're released from prison. Okay, 405,000 women. That's enough women to fill up the city of Miami, Florida. And they follow them for 5 years. 1/3 of them, they're back in prison within 6 months. More than half of them, within a year. And so you're supposed to feel a little bit of comfort because everybody doesn't come back, but 2/3 of those women, 5 years later, are either underemployed or unemployed altogether. So now we are all panicking, and all these labels start sinking in, and we start believing them. So much to the fact that I had to break down, and I called my mom crying because I'm listing all of my limitations to her and what I can never do again. And that has to be one of the hardest conversations you have as a mother. Because what do you tell your daughter who's on the phone with you crying because she's a felon, and the world thinks she's a liar and uneducated, and if she's using big words, she's just trying to manipulate the system? I'll tell you what my mom told me. My daughter's not a felon. So I stopped crying because I think my mom is losing it now. And I have to remind her about the court and the judges and the prosecutors and lawyers and the plea that I signed, and she cuts my story off again. She says, my daughter is not a felon. Dominique, the day that I start calling you a felon is the day that you identify with every label that they are trying to place on you. You are not a felon. You will never stand behind the curtain of being a felon. And baby girl, if you want to fly like Superman, you can fly. Click. We only get 15 minutes to talk, so that's where it hung up. So I'm just thinking, like, I'm walking back to my room. I'm like, Mom, my mom just doesn't get it. I'm a felon. I can't teach. I can't do this. She doesn't get it. And so I'm frustrated, and I sit on my bed, and I turn my TV on, and Black Girls Rock is on. So if you're unfamiliar with the program Black Girls Rock, it is a platform that was created by African American women to showcase their achievements and accomplishments in society that no one thought that they would ever be able to do. I am extremely motivated watching this, not only because I'm an African American woman, but these women are refusing to let any labels that have ever been placed on them prevent them from doing everything that they know that they are able to do. The platform that Black Girls Rock has created allows every little African American girl to look up and dream without the fear of labels, because they watched a woman that looks just like them do it. This platform of Black Girls Rock allowed a group of individuals to not go by the labels that society handed them and started doing things so they could be identified from. This platform of Black Girls Rock reminded me, despite anybody's initial perception of women in prison, we can still do anything. Please don't let our orange outfits fool you, because we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight like every woman that was labeled weak and wasn't strong enough to do a man's job, and she fought until she had that job anyway. We're gonna fight like every person that was excluded and labeled weird because they had a medical condition that labeled them handicapped, and they fought until they were included in everything. We're gonna fight just like that person that's trying to tell the world that they're a man, but the world's labeled them confused because they're looking at the birth certificate saying it says you're a woman. But they're gonna keep fighting because they're not putting on that dress today. We're gonna fight like every person that was ever labeled stupid for waking up with a dream that society said that's impossible, but they fought until they achieved it anyway. I am gonna fight to stay on the stage as long as it takes to remove every label off of me.